What's up, America? Welcome to our Generation AI podcast where we demystify artificial intelligence in the world. The best world out there, the world of higher education, which, by the way, everyone is in summer. So summer vibes, higher education, enjoy the break. About at least 80% of us in higher education are in summer. I am JC Bonilla, your host, and my awesome co-host is the one and only Artis Kadui. How you doing, Artis?
Hey, I haven't taken off yet, so it's like I don't know what you're talking about. Are you on vacation there?
You're a partner for higher education. How you doing? How's your summer going? And yes, no doubt that summer is intense, and a lot of things that happens during the summer. I remember when I was running programs in teams at higher education. This is planning mode, and partners like you are literally super busy, right? Because September is just coming, and half of the things you want to do they get planned or mapped out right now. So busy, I'm sure, no?
Yeah, we've been incredibly busy. So both busy on two tracks, the client acquisition side and go to market, and also on the product side. So we had our Engage conference and we put forth kind of a roadmap of what we're trying to accomplish. So a lot of those projects are wrapping up now. So they're going to be available over the next couple of months. And on the client acquisition, like you mentioned, like everybody's coming to us now and is like, okay, let's kick this project, let's kick the project. So it's like we're kind of in a very fast-paced growth on client acquisition mode right now, which is great from a business perspective.
And that's why today we wanted to have that conversation that it's very temporal. Many of you are higher education friends who are right now in planning mode and whatnot. Chances are that you're vetting partners, vendors, whatever word we're going to be using today, to set out many projects. Obviously, our lens today in this podcast is AI. And one of the things that we wanted to react to is, from our point of view, is how partner/vendor selection should take place under the good and the bad of AI, right? An emerging technology where anything can be built, but the amount of use cases for success are unfolding. Many of the things that haven't been built or need to be built are being built. So failures and successes, it's basically what's going to generate that next wave of better technology and better partnerships and whatnot. So how do we start thinking about it? And what advice can we give our partners and our friends as they do vendor selection for AI applications? And Artis, you told me I have the article to put this in context. So what happened recently out of the West Coast, specifically in LA, that sets the tone of what we want to talk about today?
Yeah, so there was an EdSurge article around an education chatbot company. The article says, education chatbot company collapsed. Where did the student data go? The sudden shelving of ambitious AI chatbot at LA Unified School District. This is one of the largest school districts in the country, right? And they had a key initiative around using AI and building an AI chatbot and project to deploy to all their students.
First of all, good for them for realizing that a front-facing technology deployment can probably automate many of their needs, which I'm pretty sure they're following short. And understanding some of these educational systems, you have one human for high-touch interventions and low-touch interventions. So one of the things that we know can happen here is that technology makes this human now able to spend more hours on these high-touch interventions that are much needed. So what happened in this story? So did it go belly up? Did it work? So what's the name of the company, by the way?
So the name of the company is called All Here Education.
All Here.
Yeah, exactly. So the LA school district, so they launched an AI called Ed, right, in March 2024, developed by All Ed. But the company All Here Education abruptly shut down a few months later. Essentially, they faced financial difficulties. So they got hired by the school district to deploy this chatbot and Ed was designed to integrate data from various school systems, providing this personalized assistance to students. Essentially, I feel like this was way too ambitious, and the scoping of the project essentially bankrupted the company because they didn't know what they were taking on. And that's something that, maybe we can kind of discuss a little bit around picking vendors and how to think about it, like doing work on demand or just ad hoc work. So providing scope of work and building kind of this bespoke systems specifically for a school, or getting off the shelf or products that are serving multiple schools altogether solutions. So we're in that really early phase right now, JC. That's those are some of the questions that maybe we want to dive a little bit deeper on, and that's what we're going to do today is kind of explore and do some comparisons on AI solutions that are being deployed in different companies or even different institutions, and how, if those are getting built internally versus externally, so like the build versus buy. But even when you buy, are they bespoke, or are they specific to to your needs, or is it a solution that many are using, and now there's viability for it to grow and continue further? So lots of those questions that come to mind, and happy to take it in whatever direction you feel is appropriate in here.
So what we prepared are the 8 pitfalls on selection of AI partners or vendors. So let's go see how many we can get to in the next 20 to 25 minutes. All right. Number 1, falling for the hype over the substance. What we need to remember is that AI is a wave and the promise is gigantic, but just because everyone is doing, should I be doing it, right? And once I start basically knowing that there's going to be that emotional factor on the vendor, the technology, and me, the acquisition or the person funding it, we just need to start this with, this is not a hype. Everyone's got it, so I have to jump. It has to answer very specific problems on automation, on resource allocation, and things of that sort. So that's point number 1. What would you like to add on that one?
I think that's very well said. So hype over substance. There is a misconception that everything is AI powered now. So when you just put, you can essentially put AI powered on your product, on something, and it doesn't really have to have much, right? It can just be very little stuff, and then you can just say AI powered. And the hype of that product now being AI powered, taking on the capabilities of what's in the market around the hype, essentially it embodies and brings that down to the product itself. So when you're looking at it, you're starting to think, okay, you need to be a little bit more detailed. It's like, well, is this solving a problem? What is that AI that's being incorporated in there? Is it a use case, or is it just what we call kind of a thin wrapper around it?
Correct.
So are we just adding like sprinklers of capabilities in there? So again, we kind of misconstrue the hype between some of the AI chatbots like ChatGPT or Claude that are helping us with productivity, and then AI that is embedded in our tools, in our day-to-day tools, and in our environment and experience. So those are 2 totally different things that I think are separated when we start talking about getting an AI vendor or working with vendors, right? So we're not talking about, are you working with ChatGPT or OpenAI or Microsoft? We're talking about vendor at the application layer, right? Vendor at for example, you're buying something because it's solving that particular use case. Think about a CRM, think about a marketing automation or landing page builder product, or a live chat or an email communication tool. So all of those pieces all of those software are solving something very specific. We're not talking about infrastructure. We're not talking about the larger chatbots. We're talking about things that you're incorporating in your day-to-day workflow, and they're connecting with your customers.
In a way, when you expand that idea, there's 2 points out of the 8 that I think you're bringing up. So let's bring them together. If hype was one of the things that is real, and many people, inventors are going to say, I do AI, but that's actually just, not. The other thing that happens is that we could be overlooking the experience of the partner, the vendor, and their track record. And there's a lack of transparency. And what I like you're saying there is that, look, they have to have the ability to have done this, right? Just because they say we work with ChatGPT, that doesn't make them AI ready. So the track record on AI implementations, which actually brings you to transparency, right? Oh, don't worry, we have ChatGPT in everything that we do. Really? But how, right? Having vendors sometimes give you this is how my AI system works, and a flow is a really important way for us to understand this is how they connect from your system to an LLM that could be, OpenAI, but there's going to be 3 steps before and 25 steps after, and just basically saying I work with LLM X, Gemini and whatnot is not good enough. Artists, from your point of view, what are the 3 or 4 like quick things that someone could be saying? They have their chops in AI, and when they do transparency, it could be just basically a bunch of terms and doesn't mean anything. So what are the 2 or 3 things that I should be trying to listen to if I'm interested in? Have they done it before? Have they done an AI implementation and they actually have a good track record?
So there's 2 things. Having an actual product, it's one thing because you can feel it, you can test it, you can see if it actually works and gets you what you need. So essentially, you want a vendor that can give you a product that you can play around with, or you can test, you can see, they can demo it to you, and you have other schools or other partners that actually are getting some ROI based on that, or they're. So that's number one.
A tangible something that, here it is, you can touch it or see it. Gotcha. Okay, love it.
Correct. So that's number one, and that's obviously the highest level. So if you have that, then the risk factor is very low because you can see exactly how that's going to work and how that goes in there. The second one is around, are they doing bespoke projects, meaning that are they a development shop that they're doing a bespoke project? Is this their core competency? Is this what they're doing, right? Is this a core shop, or is it a consultant, for example, that's like toying around with some of the automation tools and is like, oh yeah, I can build that for you, right? So that's number 2. The third one is I would highly recommend taking a look at the infrastructure that they're using. If it's something that, for example, there's a lot of these platforms that are popping up left and right now around building your own chatbot or building your own kind of AI infrastructure. So they don't own any of the underlying technology. They don't own any of the. So it's like they're essentially saying, I'm going to build you an amazing Google spreadsheet that does all these different things for you, but they're not really building you an app. They're just building you something that is a great use case on top of Google Spreadsheets or something like that, right? And these are all those platforms that are coming up that they're essentially using them to kind of do the wiring but they have no control over any of the technology on top of that. So if there's a capability that's needed, they're not in control of that. So do they own, or are they building from scratch? Meaning that are they working with the base components, or are they building on top of a platform that is kind of a no-code, low-code, putting these pieces together for you?
Are you paying for a meal, for the catering, or basically all of the above? So what I mean with that, with today's AI, and what you're saying is, you could be saying, I'm buying this technology and like they give it to you. But on the food analogy is, I am hosting a party, right? And I actually cook, versus I order a restaurant and I'm telling everybody I made this, right? And actually it's a restaurant and I'm just paid for the, catering and whatnot. And that's really what is happening here, that you could have someone who's using someone else's technology, white labeling as theirs and telling this, I built this for you. And that could be the case. Love that. Artists, one of the things that I remember being happily surprised, is how many of our partners ask for an interview with an actual ongoing client. It's so interesting how not everybody thinks that way. May feel old school, but just basically, I need to speak to a client of yours, and having that opportunity to really understand credentials of the vendor, it's not only fair, but it's the right thing to do. Let's go into something that is so obvious, but many of us miss it. All right, I'm going to secure $50,000 for this project. I get my $50,000 and guess I got a quote for $50,000. I'm in trouble. Why? Because we usually underestimate this cost of technology deployments, and there will be implementation costs, unexpected expenses, things that happen sometimes in compute, and then also like the 50 becomes 55 and whatnot. So one of the important things in vendor selection is to be suspicious of manage against that the $50,000 bill or the $10,000 bill should have a plus, and it's on you to budget, right? Or start basically having a contract with the conversations about all the things that go, from implementation to, compute time and whatnot. Anything that you've seen recently or in as you package AI and you embed it into pricing that you think it's the thing that could really go from it was 50,000, now it's like 120,000. What's the expensive thing here that really kills a partner or vendor, and then we'll have to pass that to a client? You know what I'm asking you? What is the one thing that it's so crazy, and then also like your credit card is like poof, right?
Yeah, I mean, so these large language models are not free. A lot of folks are using open source, but they still have to run them, and the inference cost, like it can still, of course, that cost is coming down with introduction. For example, OpenAI's cost. They just introduced GPT-4o Mini, which is so much cheaper than GPT-4o, and it does a lot of great work. So that cost has come down significantly, right? Over 99% till from last year. So the cost of these large language models is expensive, but then the infrastructure that's being built around them is also very expensive, from telemetry to data storage to all of these different pieces. And if you're connecting them to communication channels like SMS messaging or email or whatever, that is going to be expensive as well. So how do you maintain those costs down? It's either you have to take into account this incremental cost or this usage cost that are going to go on going forward, and based on how popular it is or what channels you're going to have that, or it's going to be a flat fee. For example, a vendor or partner can say, you know what, we have enough clients across this that we can normalize and give you a flat fee that on our side, it's not going to, we're not going to pass that cost to you, but we can normalize it because we have a little bit of variation between clients. We have enough clients that this is not going to be it's not going to break our bank. So we can give you a flat fee on that because of the scaling component. So that's what we do at Element, for example, around some of the messaging or around some of the email components or even SMS messaging and even the LLM usage. We're saying some schools are going to use it more, some a little bit less. They're going to use this component a little bit more or less, but we have a flat fee and we're not charging you incremental cost based on usage. And we've gone back and forth over this many, many times, but that's an area where you got to be careful because you're buying a project for X amount. If it's the building block or you're buying access to it, but then if there's usage costs after that, that's going to be incremental to you. And then the third part on that component is the maintenance. So if somebody is building something special for you, that's your thing, right? So if something breaks, if you need modifications, if you need changes, then you're responsible for it. And now it's the cost of maintaining a piece of technology going forward versus you're buying access like a SaaS model where you're essentially buying the access to it and then the platform evolves and now you can, you get the benefit of those evolutions without having to spend any additional incremental cost to it.
Those integration and scalability problems are really, really important. So remember that it's really unlikely that the chatbot, whatever AI technology you're going to be buying, it just stands by itself and it will be playing with your CRM, it will be playing with your student information system. Your IT department will have to definitely be a partner of this, and there will be a play. So think about the integration and scalability of it. Artists, let's switch a little bit to the data side. There's two important points here, right? Number one, that we don't have the right data, so there's insufficient data for training, and the chatbot fails because we thought we could do it, right? And the other one is that we neglect the data quality. I have it, and literally, the data, it's a nightmare. How many times you and I have, smelled the data and it works, but then once you get it, it's just not enough, right? Never mind privacy. Is the vendor, from a FAIRPA point of view, I'm maybe given really, really interesting confidential things in terms of behavior and FAIRPA protected fields. We need to have someone who has the chops to take us into, number one, do you have enough data to the project? Number two, is your data right? And number three, how do you protect my data? Knowing artists, and this kind of one like little riff, it's highly unlikely that an expert, it's going to look at your data set and 10 seconds to say that's going to work. it's going to require a little bit of doing it, to really understand the scalability of the project. So what do you think about the data aspect in these 3 points here?
So, I mean, with large language models, the data component comes when you're trying to do personalization and reaching out in different systems in order to have that memory, right? The knowledge base and the context. So if we're doing predictive AI, then you need the data to do the training or the ML components. But if we're doing chat capabilities and using like the we're using the large language models, the ability for these products to fit in and to integrate with different and have the context on the different data sources is really, really important, right? This is one of the reasons why the project at the LA United School District failed, or ED, let's call it ED. So this is why the company failed, all here failed, because they promised a project that was going to be so personalized, but they needed to integrate with all these different data sources. And that's where things fall apart. So yes, you can build a great chatbot, but that chatbot doesn't do you any good unless he has access to all the data. And with ED, in order to deliver that functionality, they needed to reach out in these different systems, get that data, and then provide it and put it in the context and do all that work. So the majority of the work goes into these integrations. So unless you're building on top of an existing platform that you own and you know the data and it's going to take a really long time to build something that goes in and says, you know what, I know the data here, I know the data here, I'm going to bring it all together. So the folks who have a platform, they have an inherent advantage right now for a go-to-market, and that's what I think. Like that's what we believe, because that's the moat. I would say it's the data of the platform. So if you already have a platform and you're putting the AI capabilities on top of that, now you don't have to worry about the things like you said, FERPA and all, because that's already governed by the platform that you have. You're just exposing it through the AI conversational interfaces. So huge advantage there. And when you look at a vendor, that's another way you should look at it, because if they don't have the platform already, then they're spending most of their time and the resources and the money trying to integrate and do the data connection components with other systems rather than focusing on the context and the AI capabilities and the functionality that they're delivering. It's more, how do we bring data together rather than, I already have everything together because we had that platform. Now I just need to focus on the advancement of that AI on top of it. Does that make sense, JC? Like how we're thinking about, because this is a very, very, it's like when you look at with the chatbot on the front end, like they all seem the same, right? But the biggest difference is this access to the layer of data and how it goes about that, and the security that comes around with it. For example, at Element, we're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. It's like, okay, you should ask your vendor if they're SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, which is, it doesn't matter if it's just going on their website, it's still collecting information, it's still collecting all that data. So it's like, that's a huge, if they're collecting RFI information or whatever, like that's a huge red flag if those security controls are not in place.
It not only makes so much sense, but it starts basically bringing these ideas of the team that needs to do this, both bilateral, the university team or whoever is sponsoring the project and the vendor, right, need to go through this aspect of, it's going to work. So can you tell to me about your point of view of, I'm only going to be doing an AI project if I do a POC, a proof of concept, a small project that showcases that I can do it, the partner, and you, the university or the client, you can also support it. Because what you just went through on the Element side, it takes some sophistication to go through it, right? And that's why Element is so good, because there's the whole hand-holding and whatnot. So what if the team doesn't have the hand-holding, right? And things of that sort. So what's your point of view of POCing to demonstrate that it works, and when it comes to failure, to fail fast so we can walk away from it? And how would you structure POCs on AI projects, if that's a thing?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the conversations that I'm having today, it's kind of from I'm looking at this from the Element kind of perspective, right? I'm like, okay, as you work with a partner or with a vendor. But if you're building internal projects yourself, like I would put those in a different bucket, right? So those are separate. Like if you're working with an internal department and they're building a POC for you for a particular workflow, those are different, right? But as you're hiring a vendor, and that's what we're talking today, POCs are super important, and we're seeing more and more requests for POCs, and that's where we really shine. Is proof of concept should be really narrow and defined, essentially to prove that the concept works. So it should have three components. It should be time bound. So you should have a narrow scope, and it should have a success metric. So you can take it the other way. So proof of concept, it needs to have a success metric. Like if this thing works, this thing happens, right? Success metric. Very narrow. You can't say, I want to prove that, I'm getting students in or students are enrolled. No, it doesn't work that way because, there's so many different variables in there. It has to be very narrow on the scope of the project. So you're proving a specific thing, it works or it doesn't work. And then the third part, time bound. So we can't have a proof of concept that's 12 months long or 6 months long. It's like it just doesn't work that way. What do you think about those three?
It's the simplicity of it just makes so much sense. Specifically, what I really like about is the time boundness of it. It has to happen within this number of time, and we know what to expect. Because many of the POCs that I've been part of, I feel I've done them, and then when if I am the vendor, right, and the client comes in and says, "What do you mean?" Right? So there's no handshake, and there is basically a definition of success that has not been shared. So that's a really important point. And one of the things that I know happens with AI projects, I think it's going to take, basically timelines are guesstimated.
Yes.
So really understanding that we can make it within the agreed time frame, and when it doesn't happen, that's a really important point. When we say it's going to be 30 days and it happened on day 40th, why? Have a retrospective of why that took place, because it could just basically tell you it's still the right partner. Don't get rid of them. It's just that now we know that if we think it's going to be 3 months, so we probably need to go for 5 months because the complexity that it's seen may be expanded or compounds. Or now that we know that that's the issue, then you plan for it. So I'd really like the approach that you take in there. Awesome. Artis, the failure of this partnership between the Los Angeles United School System and all here, it really stems on the scoping. I think you and I agree that this was a doable project, but it's a monster of a project, right? It reminds me a lot of the dichotomy of waterfall project management, agile project management, how many software engineers, and there's tons of literature around, how do you make gigantic, complex problems? So how should I start thinking about AI today? My point of view is I need to start small. There's so many things that take place beyond the technology. So AI for large projects, complexity in AI really, really worries me. In my organization, right, in Vayner, as we start thinking about introducing AI, brother, never mind the technology and the partner, just the human uplifting for someone to start doing things differently, it's real. So I worry that the failure, it's going to be on the complexity of the solution, but not from the technologies, from the ecosystem that it supports. So
yeah, the change management internally. Yeah. We're seeing that happening over and over right now as we're coming in and we're saying, you know what, you're doing things this certain way. We're introducing some of the AI assistants or this AI support and chat capabilities or even generative AI search as part of your website. You have to restart thinking about the student experience and student support with these capabilities first, right? And schools are coming back to us and saying, well, can we just turn it off during office hours or the bot during office hours because we have people to respond? And it's like, well, you're completely missing the point, right? The point is not that this is there for when you're not during office hours, but it's a complete change management. Think about this as a layer of experience and very different. So the idea that we need change management and the effort, like the way people are looking at this, are to plug some holes that they might have and not think about it as a transformational component, that how they can change internally their whole processes, is a real barrier right now. However, we're seeing a little bit of a light and kind of picking at it. So hopefully over the next year or two, or even 6 months to a year, we'll see more and more of these internal kind of changing to start thinking differently. But it's going to take some time, right? It's more like, well, I'm going to do the same thing, but maybe with AI a little bit, versus no. This gives me a complete opportunity to rethink how this department is structured, how our support system is done, how all of these things are managed internally. So I think that's the biggest barrier right now, to be honest with you. That's the biggest barrier. And the smart institutions, those that are forward-looking and forward-thinking, they're getting the benefit of early adoption. Like, think about Arizona State University, ASU, and all these other schools that are forward-thinking. They're incorporating AI as part of and they're changing how they do work. And they're seeing the benefit, and they're going to be so far ahead that if the other institutions don't start to take this seriously and think about it as a transformational component. Anyways, I'm going down a rabbit hole here because I feel very passionate about the effect that it can have on the student experience and productivity. And schools are just looking at it as, oh, is it better than my prior chatbot, which is rule-based? And it's like, wait, this is completely different. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, anyways, sorry.
Artists, everybody needs therapy, and for how he's trying to push AI, and we all know the real. And everybody, as we kind of wrap this episode today, what we wanted you to understand is that just because the technology is there, right, the ecosystem that supports it needs your empathy, passion, and understanding, right? Things can go south because your vendor, your partner, it's hyping it because you overlook their track record. Look at the transparency in how they deploy, and they tell you what they're going to be working on. The costs, usually there's going to be other layers of cost that you need to account for. But more importantly, start thinking about the partner that you select as not only a technology provider, but also a transformation partner, right? Because these projects are real. So what is the hand holding? Because when it comes to training data, a lot of things are going to be there, right? When it comes to transparency of how I do the integration and helping you think through the 2-3 layers that, oh my gosh, this could be tall in your student information system. That's a really good partner because, as Artis is saying, things could go south, and doing smaller projects or doing this kind of really having this expertise, I've seen this happening. It's where it's at. So Artis, super interesting, and I'm glad I touched on a topic that not only you have a ton of experience on, but it's close to your heart, my friend.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We can talk about this all day long, and I'm happy to kind of answer any questions, or if you reach out to me directly at my email. I'll be happy to kind of discuss any AI projects that you're starting to think about. That's really my passion. So if you're starting to think about that, just let me know. And has nothing to do with Element, but I'd love to kind of discuss any of that work.
Artis office hours, Artis at element451.com. Is that right?
That's right. Yes. I'm going to get a lot of spam.
I like that.
All right. This is great.
All right, buddies.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Till next time. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451. the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.